Age is often a reason why writers say they can't begin a book. They're either too old or they're too young. So today what we're going to do is talk about why that reason is really a poor excuse for not starting your stories.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
Welcome to the Julia Amante channel. If we're just meeting, I am Julia Amante. I'm a women's fiction author and happy to be here with you on Fridays to give you some writing tips if you are working on your story, on a book, on a short story, or just maybe a memoir that you want to write about your life and your experiences. Anyways, today, let's talk about why people use age as a reason why they can't start. Okay, so I'm going to start by speaking about being young, right? Being too young. So that's one of the I guess excuses that I had when I first started writing. So I wanted to write. I really can't remember when exactly I decided I could write a book, but definitely by the time I got to college, right? So when I was a young 18, 19-year-old, I wanted to write. If somebody had asked me, what is it that you want to do with your life? I would have said, I want to be a writer. But I didn't know a lot about being a writer. I didn't know what I needed to do. I didn't really know what what was the requirements or really how to get published or how to start. So I took some writing classes. I went to college. I knew I wanted to go to college, and I knew I wanted to be an English major, right? Because I figured an English major was the smartest thing that I could choose if I wanted to be a writer. But long story, a counselor told me, well, you don't really want to be an English major. Everybody who doesn't know what they want to do decides to be an English major. So you should just, if you want to write, go ahead and write, but choose something else. Choose something that's going to be more helpful and more valuable to you to find a job later. So just from that one sentence right there, it tells you that she didn't believe that I could be a writer, right? Because why would I need another job if I was going to write and write books and be an author? So that kind of set me off into a place that I shouldn't have gone. I should have stuck with what I knew I wanted to do. But regardless, one of my excuses, or one of my fears, or one of the reasons maybe that I believed her and thought, yeah, I should try something else, was because of my age. I thought, well, I'm so young. What do I really know about anything? I don't have enough life experience. I don't know enough about the world. I don't know enough about history or politics or art or anything, right? So how can I write with any with any authority and without knowledge if I don't really know a lot? So I did think that that was probably a reason why I should wait, right? I shouldn't start writing yet. I should do what she told me. I should go and choose a different major and just keep studying, keep learning, and then later on, once I know more, once I can have that life experience and knowledge, then I can write my book. But that is actually not a smart thing to do, okay? Because it doesn't matter how young you are. Of course you have experiences. Of course you've lived your experiences, whatever they may be. So it's not that all of a sudden you're going to wake up one day and you're going to say, oh, I have all this experience now and I'm ready to be a writer. It doesn't happen that way. And what I realized eventually in my 20s was that, wait a minute, just not having experience is an experience. So I'll explain what that means. It did help that the market was changing, right? That what I was writing, and at that point I was trying to write romances, or I was writing romances at one point, right? So but at first I was like, okay, I just want to write a romance before I was even published. But the market started to change a little bit, and with Bridget Jones' Diary, a new type of book came out, a new type of story, which was kind of a single woman, didn't know what she wanted from life, didn't know where she wanted to go, didn't really have any marriage prospects, or it was trying to figure out what you want from life. And I realized, well, wait a minute, why that person wrote exactly what I've been thinking, right? She wrote, like, I don't really know what I want from life. I'm still trying to figure out who I am. I'm still trying to determine what I want to do with my life. So writing that character, who is me, is a great idea, right? So writing from your perspective, writing what you don't know, is writing. So that, why does my character have to know everything? Why does my character have to be a professional? My character can be just a normal person who doesn't know what she wants and has experiences, right? So in your youth, you need to take what is your life, what you are living, because that is going to help you to create a realistic story, something that you do know about, which is you, and trying to figure out your life and what you want. And will make, it will attract readers, because readers, that's what they want. They want an authentic story, a character that sounds realistic, not you pretending to be somebody else, but you really just giving you what you know, your knowledge, and creating a character that is in a way similar to you, or at least to your experiences. Okay, so young people, this is definitely your time, because you are experiencing life. So don't let your being too young stop you, because you have enough experience, you have enough knowledge to write from your own perspective. All right, the second thing about being young and this being your time is that exactly that, right? You are living in a unique time. So if you're, let's say, 20, 25, whatever, right? You are, when I was 25, the world was a different place. It was completely different than what it is today. So at your age, you are living in a very unique time, and seeing things through your own perspective. So that gives you, I think, an advantage over somebody who's older, who doesn't have your point of view, your perspective on life. I'll tell you a little story. When I was very young and I was just starting out and I was taking creative writing classes and all that, one of the things we had to do in this one class was just trade, chapters, read each other's work, critique it, bring it back, and then when we went to class, we would talk about how we felt about this particular story. So one day I'm at a friend's house and I had a stack of just different, 5 or 6 different stories. And I was telling her, yeah, that I'm taking this class, I want to write a book. And so she says, well, what are you writing? Let me see, And so I just picked one up that I was reading that I thought was actually pretty good. So I gave her to her and I said, well, here. And so she read it and she looked at me and she says, you did not write this. It's like, well, how do you know I didn't write that? And she says, because it doesn't sound like you. And she was right? So I just kind of laughed. She said there are words here that I'm sure you don't even know, and she was right, because the chapter belonged to an older guy, right? Probably older. I was 19, so he might have not been that old. Maybe he was in his 40s. But anyhow, he was an older guy. He was a Jewish guy, and so he used a lot of words that from his vocabulary, from the Jewish vocabulary. And she was right. Like, some of those words, I really didn't know what they meant. But it was really interesting to hear her say that, because she said it didn't sound like me, right? I don't know those words. And it's like, okay, well, that's important, right? Because your voice is important. Your story should sound like you. It should sound like your voice. And I learned the importance of voice, and then and after that, right? That it really should sound like me. I don't want to sound like an older Jewish man. I want to sound like a young Latina girl, right? That's who I was back then, or woman, as I get older. But anyhow, that's important, right? That voice is important. It should sound like you. You should use vocabulary that is like you. And so as somebody who's young, you get to bring that forward. You get to bring your voice. You get to bring your language. You get to bring your perspective. And so remember that, right? That as a young person, you don't want to sound like a writer who wrote 30 years ago. That writer may be amazing and may be a really good role model. However, you want to create your own story, and you want your story to sound like you. Okay, and the third tip that I have for you, if you are a younger writer, is that to use your passion and your interest, again, because they're probably unique to you in this time period. There are things that younger people do that we didn't do years ago, right? So you may have a passion that is going to attract your readership. It's going to attract younger people because that's what people are interested in, right? So I don't even have a really good example. I don't know, but it could be anything. It could be, computers, something that has to do with programming and IT and all of this stuff that, of course, we didn't really have much of, or the normal person, the average person didn't have a computer 30 years ago, didn't do the things that you're probably doing today, didn't have, video games, or didn't even have, like, okay, here's a good example. How about like doing everything on your phone? Right? We didn't have that. So being able to talk to people, being able to do FaceTime. So these are cool things. But I'm talking more about like passion, something that you really love that you can bring to your story. And that's a good idea. Use that to give you something. So it doesn't matter how young you are. There's something that you love. There's something that you like to do. There's an interest that you have, and you can pour that into your story and into your novel to make it sound more like you, to make it sound more like your readership, and to have something interesting to say and write about, right? So if you're passionate about it, you're going to want to write about it. You're going to know a lot about it. You're going to be able to write authentically about it so that your readers say, oh, wow, yeah, this person knows what they're talking about. So don't prejudge it. Don't say like nobody would be interested in it. When my kids were little, we used to go to Legoland a lot, and I used to see these amazing sculptures that people built out of Legos, and would think, and my kids loved Legos, and I would think, so I bet you there was a mom somewhere who telling some kid, stop playing with these Legos, go, learn something important. Well, these kids became these master Lego builders, so you never know what where think your interest is going to go, or what kind of jobs are going to be available in the future. So don't prejudge your passions and what you like about it. Just go ahead and write. Include things that you are interested in, because it's going to make for a better story. And if you truly, truly don't know about something that you need to know because you're writing a character that does something, let me tell you, this happens to all of us. It doesn't matter how old you are, right? It doesn't matter your age. There's always going to be something that as a writer we are writing about that we don't know anything about. So we need to do research. Okay, so that's the most important thing for an author, is to be able to do some research, to be able to use Google appropriately, to be able to find information that you need. I am currently writing in my story, there's a lot of historical things that because I'm using my parents' history and some of the events that they went through early in when they first immigrated to this country. Well, they lived in New York in the late 1960s, and sometimes I'm writing something and it's like, oh, he says, he bought this car, and it's like, well, okay, well, what kind of car could he have purchased? How much did that car cost? There's a lot of information that I have no idea, or that he would go somewhere. Well, what did that street look like in the 1960s? So we all have to do research. It really doesn't matter how old you are. So if there's something you don't know and you're younger and you have no idea, then research it, find out about it, learn about it, and then you can include it in your book. So being too young is definitely not a reason not to start your stories, not to start writing. You may not even be that great at it yet. That's okay, because you have a lot of years to get better. So just start writing, start including what you know, and then as you grow, as you get older, your writing will mature as well. Your interests will change, and you'll write different types of stories. But don't let your being too young or your youth stop you from writing. Okay, so now let's talk about being too old to write. If you're older, and by older it could be just like being in your 40s, right? You might think, well, I've already got a career, I've got children, I've got responsibilities. I'm in my 40s. Why should I start writing now? How is this going to help me? What use is this going to be? Well, let me tell you that, it doesn't matter, obviously, the age. There are so many writers that started when they were older than that, right? They were in their 60s or 50s. So it's, there's never a time when you're like, okay, well, I passed this age now. Too bad, too old. I missed the opportunity. You can always start writing, and some writers may feel, well, because I have all these responsibilities or because I have a job, this is kind of just an indulgence, and why am I wasting my time doing that? And it's not that. It's not an indulgence. It's something that you want to do, and you should, right? Because it's something that you could be good at. It's something that could bring you a lot of enjoyment. And why not? If it's a dream that you have, does it really matter when you start, right? And I'm assuming it's not going to be like, oh, and it can be, but I'm assuming it's not like, okay, I want to write because I want to make this my new career and make $1 million. Well, nobody should start writing because they want to make $1 million. Because they want to make it a new career, possibly, but it can also be just because you want to write. You've had this dream to write a book, and you want to start and you want to write it, or you have a story that you really want to tell. So it's not a waste of time. It's not an overindulgence. It's not taking away from your family and kids, because there are other things that you do that could take away from your family and kids, but you do it anyways, right? You can go out with friends. You can do other things that we don't think, well, should I really go out with friends? Because I really should be at home, cleaning, or I really should be at home taking care of my kids. We don't think that. It's like we want to go out with friends, or we want to go to a movie, or we want to do something. We do it. But if we want to sit down and write, all of a sudden we come up with all these reasons like, well, no, I really should be spending time with the kids, or I really should be doing other things. And it's like, well, why? It's just something else that you love to do, so you should do it. So first of all, kind of eliminate that. Okay, there's no reason that you shouldn't start writing if that is something that you want to do, no matter what age. The number one reason that I think older people should write, if that's something that's in their heart, is because you do have that compelling story to tell, and you don't want to come to the end of your life and say, I really wanted to write this story down, whether it's a personal story or whether it's just something that you made up, and that you didn't do it for, the reasons we talked about, I'm too old, I don't have time, all that stuff. You don't want that to happen. You want to, at some point in your life, when you're old and you're sitting in a rocking chair and you're like, okay, now I've lived my life, right? You want to look back and say, I'm really glad I wrote down that story, whether 1 million people read it or 10 people read it or one person read it. You wrote the story, and if you have a compelling story that you want to tell, I think that it's a shame if you don't do it. So the number one reason I think you should do it is because you have that story inside of you that needs to be released, that needs to come out and be told. And the second reason is, I think when somewhere between like 40 and 50, right? 40, 55, we have sort of the second rebirth in a way. So when you're in your early 20s, you're trying to figure out like who you are, right? When we talked about when you're younger, you're like, I'm too young to write because I don't really know who I am. I don't really know what I want. Well, somewhere between 40, 50, maybe a little older, we have this sort of second opportunity to do this, because typically if we've had kids have grown up, right? Kids have grown up, they've gone off to college or starting their own life. Maybe we're retiring. There's things that are happening, and we're all of a sudden, I think that's why people have this like midlife crisis, right? What does that mean? It just means that all of a sudden you've lived your life, but you're reaching a point where things are changing and you're ready to think, well, did I do what I wanted to do? Am I the person that I thought I was back then? How have things changed? Is this who I really want to be? We almost go through the same thing that we did in our early 20s, because we're getting this opportunity to begin again, to start again. And so what a great time to sit down and say, well, let me write down the story. Either let me write down the things that have happened in my life that can help other people, or let me just have a little bit of time to write the story that I wanted to write. So I think that's another reason to do it, is like, it's a great opportunity to kind of reflect back and to write the story that we want to write, or to write something, or just to be a writer if that's what we want to do with that sort of second half of our life. The third reason that I think you should start writing if you are older and that is something you want to do, is because it gives you an opportunity to reconnect with yourself, and to think. So sometimes, we don't really stop to think. We don't. Some of us would like to meditate, like me, and I'm not very good at it. And I do it sometimes, and then I stop. But if you don't, right? If you don't ever stop to think, you're always just working, 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 doing this, doing that, running errands. All your life is just one giant thing to do, one after another, and you don't have the time to sit and reflect. Writing gives you that opportunity. It gives you a time to just stop and think. So whether it's, I'm going to write for publication, I'm going to write a novel, I'm going to just write in my journal, or, whatever it is, I'm going to write some short stories, I'm going to write my memoir. It gives you time to stop and reflect. One of my favorite quotes from E.M. Forrester is, "How do I know what I think until I see what I say?" And I love that, because a lot of times I feel that way. It's like, until I sit down and actually start writing, I don't even know that I thought that sometimes, right? It's like, oh, wow, I didn't know I felt this way. I didn't know that this was even on my mind. So it helps you to kind of get recentered and think a little bit, to put things down, onto your computer screen, to onto a document, or to handwrite if you do that. Okay, so it gives you that opportunity to reconnect and focus. Okay, and then the fourth reason I think I'm on is that it gives you the opportunity to be creative again. As we get older, we stop being creative. When we're young, we play, we do all kinds of things, we relax, we go to the beach, we do things that are fun. And then we forget when we get older, where we just focus on work, like I was just saying. So it gives you an opportunity to be creative again, to just think up stories, to create character, to see whether it's going to lead. It's just fun, and we need creativity in our life. And if writing is your passion, it's something that you love to do, that's a great way to be creative. It's a great way to add creativity to your life. Okay, and the fifth reason is where we were saying, young people feel they don't have enough experience, but older people have those experiences. You have those experiences. So as an older person, you have so much to draw from, that it's a shame not to write it down. It's a shame not to use those experiences to write your story, the story that you want to write. So I think that's a huge advantage that older people do have, is that we do have all that experience. We have not only actual real experiences, we have emotional experiences. We have things that maybe that we think now that we didn't think when we were younger, because we didn't have those experiences, so we couldn't have had those thoughts, right? So we have just this richness in our mind that is great to be able to share with other people, younger people, and with everyone. So I think that another, probably the biggest reason for older people to actually write is because you want to share that. You want to share these thoughts, and you want to share these experiences with other people. You might create a story that other people haven't even thought of, because of the unique life that you have lived. So being young, being old, it doesn't really matter, right? Age doesn't really matter. It's typically an excuse that we use, because writing can be hard, because it can be a change in our life, because it's going to take up some of our time. And though we would love to write, and we would love to have the book written, the actual sitting down and doing it is kind of scary. And it's kind of, do I really, really want to put in the time? So sometimes we say, oh, I'm just too young, I'll do it later. Oh, I'm just too old, I should have done that 10 years ago, right? So what I want to say today is just that don't use that excuse. It doesn't matter if you're too young or too old. If you love writing, if you really want to write, I think that you should do it. You should give it a try. If you haven't started yet, start now, because great stories need to be told. And I can't tell the story you're going to tell. Even best-selling authors can't tell the story that you want to tell. So I encourage you, no matter how old you are, if you have a story inside you that you want to tell, you should do it and start right away. I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope that you come back and see me again next Friday. For now, because my life is so crazy, I only have videos on Fridays, but I really, really love creating them. It was something that I decided I was going to do a couple years ago, and I'm really, really glad that I did. And I don't like making videos, and I don't like talking to a camera, but I've gotten used to it now, and so I really enjoy just sharing some of the information that I have. I hope that it's helpful. Please hit the like and the share button, and come back and see me next Friday. Bye-bye.